As COVID-19 inoculations ramp up across the country, many are hopeful that life will soon return to normal. But questions remain surrounding the very vaccines poised to deliver a final blow to the pandemic. Good evening, and welcome to this month's edition of Rural America Live with AARP. I'm Christina Loren. And we also welcome those of you joining us tonight on Rural Radio, Sirius XM Channel 147. Our topic tonight is COVID vaccines, and we want to hear from you. Join the conversation, 877-283-7570. Our phone lines are now open. Again, the number is 877-283-7570. And our question of the month is, what coronavirus vaccines are available right now? And are the vaccines safe? Now, if you pick up the phone and chime in tonight, 5 lucky on-air callers will win a Yeti cooler. So tonight, if you're caller number 1, 3, 6, 9, or 11, you will be a winner. And you can keep ice for 5 to 7 days in that Yeti cooler. They're super durable. It's a great giveaway. Give us a call. Remember, you don't need to be a member of AARP or over the age of 50 to win. And as a friendly reminder, you can only win one time every calendar year. For those of you who are winners tonight, AARP will call you back using the number from your caller ID. It won't be tonight, but it will happen in the next few days to confirm your mailing address. Now, if you're a past winner and you haven't received your cooler yet, be sure to return their call and provide a shipping address. Joining us tonight, Sarah Jennings, AARP Regional Director. She is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota by phone. And we also welcome Dr. Mark Rupp, the Chief of Infectious Diseases at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Welcome to you both. Dr. Rupp, let's start with you. There are currently 2 vaccines that have been approved and 3 others in the pipeline. Let's start with the Pfizer and Moderna shots that are currently being administered across the country. How are they the same and how are they different?
Well, they're 2 very, very similar in a lot of respects. As you mentioned, one is made by Pfizer, one's made by Moderna. They're both what's known as mRNA vaccines. So this is a new type of vaccine that is using technology that we've been working on for decades, but this is the first time that we've been able to use it for vaccination. So they're using the same overall strategy. They're a little bit different with regard to the lipid package in which they are encapsulated, but they have almost the same efficacy, the same side effect profile, very, very similar in all those respects.
Okay, and we know that there are 3 others coming down the pipeline, which we will be discussing tonight, but we want to bring Sarah into the conversation. Sarah, we've heard from a number of our viewers that just securing an appointment to get a vaccine has been a bit of a wild goose chase. But AARP has stepped up and put together a free resource. How can people access that?
Yeah, that's right. It's the stories that we are hearing from across the country. It almost doesn't matter what state you live in, have really been almost heartbreaking as people have struggled to figure out how they can get access to the vaccine. So AARP put together websites for each state that can be found at aarp.org/vaccine info. And at those sites, there's the latest information on the vaccine, and you can just put in your state, and you'll find the latest information on your state's vaccination rollout. Things are changing daily. Thankfully, it seems the supply of the vaccine is starting to go up around states, so that is causing some states and counties and communities to change their plan. And so those sites are changing daily, and as we are hearing from local county or state officials that situations are changing on the ground. So we hope it's a really good resource for folks. And for folks that aren't online, there's also, we're trying to make sure that there's numbers that you can call in your state to get information as well. We also created the Coronavirus Resource Center, which is at aarp.org/coronavirus. And there you can find lots of information about health, caring for people you love, and also some travel advice, because I think we're all feeling a little cooped up, and so there are things that we can start to think about when the world opens up again. So it's a great place for folks to go and learn the latest news. And, I wanted to mention that in addition to the kind of education and outreach that we're doing so folks know how to secure to secure an appointment for vaccines, we also are doing a lot of advocacy with local, county, and state governments to really try to improve these systems because, as you said, we shouldn't have to go on a wild goose chase to get a vaccination. And so we're working with governments all across the country to try to help streamline that, to get the word out, to partner with other organizations if we can figure out, ways to provide transportation and some of the other barriers that we're hearing to getting a vaccine. So it's a complicated situation, and we are doing our best to help make it a little easier for folks.
Someone needed to streamline everything, so I'm grateful to AARP for doing so because it has been a challenge. And when you talk about some of our older Americans, just getting online can be difficult. So we really appreciate the resources available from AARP. Dr. Rupp, let's talk about vaccines. Let's talk about the efficacy. Based on the limited but encouraging data so far, public test results from approved vaccines show that they eliminate COVID-19 deaths and they drastically reduce hospitalizations. What are you seeing so far when it comes to vaccine results?
Christina, both of the vaccines that are available through these emergency use authorizations are just amazingly effective. As they were rolling out, most of us in the field were very expecting efficacy rates of somewhere maybe 60 or 70%. These are 95% effective in preventing illness and nearly 100% effective in preventing hospitalization or death. So this is really a home run. These are tremendously effective. And then the side effect profile is also quite acceptable. We're really gaining a lot of experience, having given tens of millions of doses now, and we're very comfortable with saying that these, are very safe and very efficacious.
Dr. Rupp, we are hearing so much more data proving that they are safe, but there's still a lot of vaccine hesitancy across the country right now. What is the public understanding? What are they taking as negative about the vaccines? Why do you think we're seeing that reluctancy out there?
Well, I think that first of all, people understand that these vaccines came out very quickly. And so, when you think about just a little over a year ago, we had never even heard of this virus to the point today where we actually have a safe and effective vaccine that we're, injecting into people. I think folks have a little bit of skepticism as to, how rigorously done were the studies and how safe is the vaccine. What I would reassure people is that although it was done quickly, they did not cut corners with the safety. These were tested in very large phase 3 clinical trials that were controlled, placebo-controlled, randomized, and really very, very rigorously examined. And then with the tens of millions of doses that we've administered thus far, we again have a very good safety profile now with the vaccines. So I would try to allay people's fears and really relate that the vaccine is really their best bet when they look at the real risk of coronavirus and the serious disease that can result, or even the death or the long-term manifestations. The risk benefit is clearly in favor of getting the vaccine.
Yeah, the long-term implications alone are a reason it's preventative at this point. Sarah, let's talk a little bit more about this hesitancy. What are you hearing from your members out there? Are they hesitant? Are they ready to sign up? What are you hearing in South Dakota?
Well, in South Dakota, where I'm tonight, and thankfully the temperatures are finally going up, we're hearing that people are starting to feel a lot more comfortable as more people across the country are getting the vaccine and not seeing side effects right away. So I think that just having more of the population start to get vaccinated is one thing that's really been encouraging, because we have seen that numbers compared to last fall when we asked our members, how do you feel about it? The hesitancy actually is going down in a lot of the population, but not all of it. And so we just really encourage folks to, if you do have questions about whether the vaccine is right for you, to talk to your healthcare provider, and also, talk to your friends, family, do your research, because as Dr. Rupp just described, these are pretty incredible vaccines that have been developed, and they are, safe in terms of what we've been able to see through the emergency evaluation process. And so really, we just encourage people to kind of talk to the folks you love, that you trust, and make a decision for yourself. But I actually think what we're hearing more of, rather than hesitancy, is just a real desire to get vaccinated. And so that's where the supply issue is a tough one. And this difficulty in being able to access an appointment is a real frustration and has caused a lot of stress, anxiety, and, tough moments for people across the country who have just struggled either on websites or being on hold for hours and hours on the phone. So we need to get more supply into the system, but we also need to get the system to get an appointment a lot better everywhere.
All right. Well, we have callers waiting on the line already, and we are going to get to your calls after this short break. I want to make sure everybody has the number, 877-283-7570. Get your question in early, and Dr. Rupp will have an answer for you. Stay with us. More Rural America Live with AARP right after this.
Hi, I'm Joe Bonzel of the Oak Ridge Boys. Got a minute to talk about unemployment scams and tax time? Yes, it's tax filing season, which means sorting through forms and paperwork. This year, preparing to file may take an unexpected twist for people who suddenly discover they have a Form 1099-G listing the unemployment benefits they received. Only they've never applied for or received the benefit. The number of fraudulent unemployment claims have spiked as states have rushed to send out legitimate unemployment benefits since the pandemic took hold. One estimate puts the losses at $36 billion. So if you find that someone claimed unemployment benefits in your name, inform your employer and contact your state unemployment agency immediately. Then visit www.identitytheft.gov and follow the guidance specific to your situation. And make a plan to monitor your credit report moving forward for free via www.annualcreditreport.com. Hey, listen, these are tough times. Be a fraud fighter. If you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. Visit the AARP Fraud Watch Network at www.aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork or call the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline at 1-877-908-3360 to report a scam or to get help if you have fallen victim. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Sure love those Oak Ridge boys. And welcome back to Rural America Live with AARP. I'm here with our friends tonight. Dr. Mark Rupp is joining us from Omaha, Nebraska, and Sarah Jennings joins us from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We are giving away 5 Yeti coolers, and we want you to join the conversation tonight. If you are caller number 1, 3, 6, 9, or 11, you'll be a winner. The odds are with you tonight as we have 5 to give away. Give us a call at 877-283-7570. We've got callers waiting on the phone now, so let's go to our first caller, who just so happens to also be a winner tonight. It is Barnett from Alabama. Thanks for joining us, Barnett. Congratulations, and go right ahead with your question.
I was wondering, the current vaccines on the market now require 2 shots. And I hear Johnson & Johnson, when they come online, they're going to have 1 shot. I'm 55, so I know I'm not eligible now, but you think it'd be a gamble to wait for the 1 shot?
Yeah, my advice to you, Bernard, would be that as soon as you become eligible to get a vaccine, go ahead and accept whatever form is being offered to you. Again, the mRNA vaccines, very, very effective. They do take 2 shots, either at 3 or 4 weeks. Whereas you're correct, if the J&J vaccine does get approval, which I think most of us anticipate will happen, that may just be 1 shot. But again, take advantage of whatever vaccine is made available to you.
Appreciate that call, Barnett. That leaves a line open for you. 877-283-7570 is the number to call. Next up is Dee from New Mexico. Steve, can you hear us?
Oh, yes, I can.
Thanks for joining.
My question was, we had, my wife and I both had COVID, and we got treated with the monoclonal antibody treatment, IV infusion. My question is, how soon should we consider to apply for the vaccine? We're both in our 70s. How long after the treatment we had should we try to get a vaccine done?
Steve, I'm so glad that you were able to take advantage of the monoclonal antibody infusions. Those have really been shown to decrease the severity of illness and keep people out of the hospital. So it's great that you were able to take advantage of that. You should wait for 90 days after having received that monoclonal to go ahead and get your COVID vaccine.
Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I really don't. I'm going to leave all of the medical advice to Dr. Rupp.
All right, we are going to go to Mississippi for our next call. And what was that name? William. We've got William joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us. Go right ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you. My wife and I both had the first shot of Moderna. We're scheduled for the second in about a week or so. I have been told that we should take 2 Tylenols before receiving the shot, and I've also read and heard that we're not supposed to. What's the doctor say?
Steve, William, great question. What I would suggest is that if you went through the first vaccine without too much trouble, I'd go ahead and go through the second booster shot and not take any pre-medications. If you start to get into problems or you're having, aches and pains and fevers, then it's okay to go ahead and to take a little bit of Tylenol or Motrin. But if you can soldier through it without too much trouble, it's probably better not to take those meds.
All right, thank you for that call, William. And by the way, sir, you are a winner tonight of a Yeti cooler. Congratulations. Next up, we're going to South Carolina to talk to Gary. Thanks for joining us, Gary. Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. My question is, if you take the vaccine, why do you still have to wear a mask and still maintain 6 foot?
Gary, that's a great question, and a lot of people are asking that. It's like, if I'm going to get the vaccine, why do I still need to do all these precautions? And there's really just several things that you need to keep in mind. The first of them is that although the vaccines are incredibly effective, we still don't have a few crucial pieces of data. And one of those things that we don't fully understand is whether the vaccine prevents you from asymptomatically acquiring the virus and shedding it. And therefore, even though you won't get sick because you've been vaccinated, you may still be able to transmit the virus. Now, I fully expect that in coming weeks or months, we're going to have that data and be able to tell you that you really are not at risk of being able to acquire and shed, but we just don't quite know that yet. And then the second thing to keep in mind is that it's going to be a very, very difficult messaging task if some people are not wearing masks and other people are wearing masks and you don't know if they've been vaccinated or not. So I think until we get the population vaccinated, it's just best if we all stay on the party line and continue to wear our masks and do our distancing. And then the third thing to keep in mind, and we may want to circle back to this, is the role of the variants that have been described. And there is some information that the vaccine may not be quite as effective against some of those variants. And until we know whether they are going to gain ground and start to really circulate in the country, it's probably best to continue to take those measures of wearing a mask and keeping your distance, avoiding any indoor shared airspace. So some of those things were, indoor dining, going out to the bars or going into settings where you're going to be around people who aren't able to wear masks is still going to be a little bit risky, and I would advise against that.
All right. Thank you for that straightforward answer. We sure appreciate having you on tonight, Dr. Rupp. Next up is Nancy from North Carolina. Thanks for joining us, Nancy. Go right ahead.
Yes. My question is, if I've already or had the virus, do I need to get the vaccine?
Nancy, another really great question. We don't know how long natural immunity lasts. We think that there's pretty good protection for at least 3 months, but there are a few rare cases of people getting a second infection despite having recovered from COVID just within the few previous months. We actually think that the vaccines are going to do better than Mother Nature, and that the level of protection from the vaccine will be higher and longer lasting than natural infection. So the advice right now is that if you've recovered from COVID, that you go ahead and get the vaccine as well. Now, if you want to wait for 90 days between having the infection and getting your vaccine, that's acceptable. But again, I would recommend as soon as that vaccine is made available to you to go ahead and take advantage of it. I think you'll get better and more long-lasting protection that way.
Thank you so much for that call. We sure appreciate it. Sarah, I wanted to bring you back in the conversation. What are you hearing from your members is the hardest for them right now during the pandemic? Is they miss their grandchildren, they can't meet with friends at restaurants, churches, and clubs. What has been the hardest for your community to contend with, and what are they most looking forward to after getting vaccinated?
I think it is, being back with family. That's hard for everybody, no matter the age, and and missing some of the big milestones events this year. I mean, it's been hard for everyone. I think that's the thing that we're hearing, that folks are just really, almost desperate to get back to, and and then we have some folks across the country who are isolated, and so they've had to be, have this, that's a struggle, even in a quote unquote normal year, but then this year those challenges have been exacerbated by, everyone having to be so isolated. So I think, people are really looking forward to getting the vaccine, being able to go back out safely, give their grandchildren, their kids, whomever it is, a big hug. And also just kind of get back to participating in family events again, seeing their grandkids play sports or their kids play sports. I mean, all of it. So I think that's been the biggest thing. And right now, while we're in this early stages of vaccine distribution, we're, as I've said before, we're just hearing folks that are really frustrated and anxious about getting that appointment on the books so that they can kind of see that light. The light at the end of the tunnel, I think, is getting a little brighter for all of us, but I think my assumption is once you get that appointment on the books and you go get that first vaccine, that light feels like it's getting real close. And I'm looking forward to that for all of us.
We are all looking forward to life returning to normal. So thank you for that. Just hearing those words come from your mouth, knowing that we are going to get back there. And now with the vaccines, They're the reason why, and that's what this show is all about tonight. We are going to go back to the phones now. Deborah from Louisiana is our next winner. Thanks for joining us, Deborah. Go right ahead.
Yes, I think my concerns is taking the vaccine. We're kind of elderly, and we've had a couple friends that took the vaccine, and they got very sick and is in the hospital. So my current concerns is who should take the vaccine and who shouldn't take it with medical problems.
Yeah, Deborah, the issues are that, almost everybody who takes the vaccine will have a sore arm. That's probably about 80% of people. And about half of folks who get the vaccine will have some other side effect. They may have some aches and pains, some headache, feel malaise or fatigue. Most of those symptoms are very manageable, and they are self-limited. They'll go away in a day or two. And folks who are frail and have a lot of underlying comorbid conditions, such as having heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, obesity, these are all the people who really, really need to take the vaccine, because if they get COVID, their risk of serious illness or death is very high. But the risks of taking the vaccine are actually quite limited and quite low. So, those things that you mentioned about being frail and sick are actually reasons to get the vaccine rather than reasons to avoid it. I'm sorry to hear of your experience with a couple of your friends who, received the vaccine and then for whatever reason needed to go to the hospital. But that's really very, very rare in response to the vaccine.
All right. Thank you so much for that call. We sure appreciate it. We're going to go to Kentucky. Dan's on the line. Thanks for joining us, Dan. Go right ahead.
Dr. Rupp, the safety of the new vaccines in pregnancy and the benefit versus risk. The safety of these vaccines in pregnancy, is there any new data out on that?
Dan, thanks for that question. And pregnant women are a group that, were not studied in the big phase 3 trials. What I can tell you is that there's no reason to think that this vaccine would be dangerous for pregnant women or their developing babies. And in fact, all of the professional societies, the Society of Obstetrics and Gynecology, as well as the Maternal Fetal Medicine Society, have recommended that the vaccine be made available to pregnant women. And if they want to take the vaccine, they should be able to do so. They've recommended that this be a decision that a woman makes in conjunction with her obstetrician. But again, there's no reason to think that it's going to be dangerous or that there's some contraindication to it. Now, there were some women in the trials that became pregnant shortly after getting vaccinated. Obviously, those women are being watched very, very carefully. Most of those pregnancies have not come to term at this point, but there is no information to suggest that this is harmful for the woman or for her developing baby.
Excellent. 877-283-7570 is the number to call and join our conversation. And not only do you get your questions answered by the experts, you also have the chance to win a Yeti cooler tonight. We're going to go back to the phones in just a moment, but I do want to ask you, Dr. Rupp, if Americans do step up and get vaccinated, what kind of timeline are we looking at for potential herd immunity?
Well, that's kind of the million-dollar question, Christina. Obviously, we're rushing these vaccines as quickly as we can out into the community. The last data I saw suggested that we're, getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.7 million doses out there every day. So this is a tremendous, effort and a good pace. Most folks think that we're going to reach herd immunity when we're at 70, 75, 80% of the population or even higher that have either reached immunity due to natural infection or through vaccination. So we've got a ways, unfortunately, to go yet. I know here in my state, it's estimated that we have just a little over 6% of the population that's been vaccinated. We probably have maybe 20 to 25% of folks who've had natural infection. So we have a ways to go yet.
All right. Well, really glad to at least get an update on the numbers, knowing that we're heading in the right direction. We're going to go the direction of Wisconsin next to talk to John. Thanks for joining us, John. Go right ahead. John, can you hear me?
Yes, this is John.
Hey, John, go ahead with your question.
The question I have is a doctor told me that the vaccine has been made out of, one of the ingredients was lungs from an aborted baby.
Yeah, John, that's something that people have expressed some concern about, whether there's any fetal cells that are contained in the vaccine. I can assure you that there are no fetal cells that are in the vaccine preparation. They're not used in the manufacture. They're not used anywhere along the process. And so there are no fetal cells in the vaccine preparation. Now, very, very, very early in the early stages of development of the vaccine, they did test whether the vaccine would deliver the mRNA into human cells by using a cell line that had been obtained through that process of fetal cells back, I think it was over 30 years ago. And that's the only contact that has been in anywhere in the process with fetal cells. So again, I would reassure you that there are no fetal cells in the vaccine preparation. All of the major religious groups and theologians have come out in support of the vaccine, saying that it's perfectly ethical and acceptable. So I would, again, encourage you to not be worried about that concern and to get the vaccine when it's made available to you.
All right, but we appreciate the question because there are a lot of misconceptions out there, and dispelling myths is part of it. It's a big part of it. Have you had to contend with a lot of that, Dr. Rupp?
Yeah, unfortunately, as we talked about a little bit earlier, there are some, hesitancy to get the vaccine. Part of it is, some belief that there's an unacceptable side effect or toxicity profile. Some of it is just, a mistrust for medicine and science and authority. And, I can understand that, particularly in some of our minority populations. You don't have to look very far for some really, egregious examples of poor behavior on the fact of medical science. But, we can't let that stop us. We can't let the past keep us from moving forward. This is a vaccine that we need to make available to our minority populations because they've borne such a brunt from this pandemic. And this is the way that they can gain protection from further, morbidity and mortality and misery from the virus. So, again, I urge people to go to trusted sources of information, the CDC, the WHO, the FDA. Go to those sources for your information. Try to, stay away from the conspiracy theorists on the social media, and really look to reliable sources to make that decision of whether you're going to take the vaccine. Again, it's very, very much in favor of the person accepting the vaccine when you look at the benefit from the vaccine versus the real risk from the infection itself.
Yeah, the long-term impacts like you were talking about. Okay, we are going to go back to the phones. I want to give you the number. We still have time for your call out there. You could still be a winner of a Yeti cooler as well, 877-283-7570. Up next, we're going to Arkansas. Tim joins the conversation. Thanks for joining us, Tim. Go right ahead.
Yes, Dr. Rupp. My wife and I both have congestive heart failure. We're in our 70s. We have not had any family gatherings since this began. We have a very large, close family, and once the rest of the family has either had COVID or has been vaccinated, and my wife and I are vaccinated, is it reasonable then for us to resume our family gathering tradition?
Tim, this is what all of us are looking forward to, is the day that when we have immunity in the population and we can get back to doing those things that we all crave so much, including, as in your example, getting together with those that you care the most about, your loved family members. When you've been vaccinated, your wife's been vaccinated, all of the members of your extended family have been vaccinated, we're going to be able to open up again and start those meetings. The things I talked about a bit earlier in the program with regard to the variants are the real wild card in this whole thing. And if we start to have circulation of a variant is less protected by the vaccine, then the bets may be off. But at the current time, if the extended family has been vaccinated, that's going to be a much safer, condition for you and your wife, and you'll be able to enjoy that.
All right, thank you so much for that call, Tim. That leaves a line open for you tonight, 877-283-7570. Sarah, I want to bring you back in the conversation because AARP.org/vaccine info has some fantastic resources available. And right on the top page, what if your vaccine appointment is postponed or cancel? And it's got a picture of a winter scene, a snowy highway. I'm sure this is something you had to deal with in your region, right?
That's right. Although, I was talking to some folks further south, and, up here in South Dakota, Nebraska, where Dr. Rupp is, we're sort of used to dealing with the snow and the ice and the cold. And my heart goes out to folks further south who this has been a real challenge, and especially for folks in Texas who are, so many without power. But I know that's happening in other states as well. But there's a lot of great resources on that website that does have a state guide. So if folks are comfortable being on the internet, go to that website and check out kind of the information about how to find out the information about what's happening in your state in terms of getting an appointment. We have information about, who's eligible right now in your state and that sort of thing. So that's at that AARP.org/vaccine finder. We also have that webpage, which is AARP.org/coronavirus. And on there's a lot of great articles about the vaccine, but also some good tips for, while we're waiting to get back to whatever the new normal will be, ways to just stay connected with loved ones and the community. And we are doing a lot of virtual events, we've had concerts and things like that. So on that website, there's a lot of different information, resources about getting through this difficult time, but also resources that I hope will also maybe put a smile on people's faces as they, either find a new way to connect with someone virtually or maybe find an article or an event that AARP is hosting that can help, take some of the tedious, kind of sameness of our days right now, but liven things up a little bit.
Oh,
so I'd encourage folks to check that out.
It's such a great resource. I could spend hours just going through it. So I'm going to give everybody the website one more time. It's AARP.org/vaccine info. One of the questions we often get is about the side effects of inoculation. We're going to pose that question to Dr. Rupp on the other side of this break. Stay with us. We still have a Yeti cooler to give away as well, so give us a call. The number is right there at the bottom of your screen, 877-283-7570, and you might just be a winner tonight. You will be with the information you get, but you might get a Yeti cooler as well. Stay with us. More Rural America Live with AARP after this.
Hi, we're the Oak Ridge Boys, and you're watching AARP Live.
Yeah.
Love the Oak Ridge Boys. Just seeing them will put a smile on your face, even in the middle of a pandemic. Welcome back to Rural America Live. I'm Christina Loren. We still have Yeti coolers to give away, so let's go straight to the phones. This time we're going to New York. Christian joins the conversation. Thanks for joining us, Christian. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Rupp and Sir, Director Jennings, with the likelihood that the world population will be delayed in getting vaccinations for probably at least a couple of years, are we looking at projecting booster shots? And is there any start in planning for that? Thank you.
Christian, really good question. I think that, from everything that we're seeing, everybody in America will be able to have access to the vaccine in the next few months. Again, I've seen the, statements from the president relating that really by summertime, there'll be enough vaccine for everybody. So I don't think that it's going to be a matter of years for the vaccine to get into all areas of the country. It's just a matter of another few months. Now, the question is, how long is the immunity going to last from the vaccine? And as we continue to gain evidence, it just keeps getting pushed out further and further, month after month. I'm hopeful that there's going to be long-lasting memory and long-lasting protection for many months, maybe even years, and we just don't know that. But there is work that's being done on producing boosters, particularly directed against some of these variants that have been described. So, people are being very, very careful, very aggressive with regard to studying the variants and preparing boosters if we need them. But I'm hopeful that the vaccine is going to have long-lasting protection, and we may not need boosters for some period of time.
All right. And Sarah, what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question about the challenge that we're going to be facing or already are facing in ensuring that folks in rural America can get access to the vaccine. And I just wanted to raise that is an issue that AARP is talking to state leadership about, to make sure that there is a plan to reach every part of every state as quickly as possible with the vaccine as more supply is available. And we are seeing some success in some states that have relied on existing relationships either between community pharmacies and patients or local docs and patients. So I just want to reassure folks that, I think that challenge is on everybody's radar, or maybe not everybody's radar. It's on AARP's radar.
Right.
And we're really going to make sure that local, county, and state officials are focused on that challenge and making sure that just because you might live in rural America doesn't mean you have to wait any longer for the vaccine.
And that's what I love about AARP. That's why you do this show on RFD-TV, because you care about rural America. So that speaks volumes. I appreciate what you're doing for our people. It's wonderful. All right, we have a winner on the line with us. This time it is Richard from Tennessee. Thanks for joining the conversation. Congratulations, Richard. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to ask the doctor, also, while the vaccine's been given to the individuals, have there been any recorded deaths from this vaccine?
Yeah, Richard, a good question. And again, it gets at, what is the side effect and toxicity of the vaccine? The biggest thing that people need to be concerned about with getting the vaccine is the very rare but serious allergic reactions that can occur. And what we're seeing is a rate of serious allergic reactions, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2 per million people who get the vaccine. And these can be serious. We're talking about anaphylactic type reactions where folks can drop their blood pressures or get shortness of breath and closing off their airway. We're trying to protect against that with the sites that are giving the vaccine, carefully monitoring people for 15 minutes after they get the vaccine. They have on site the medications like epinephrine that may be necessary to reverse that allergic reaction. But outside of that, the allergic reaction is really what you need to watch for. With any big program where you're vaccinating millions of people, they are going to continue to have those medical conditions that they would have had anyway. So there's going to be people who have heart attacks and strokes and, do have deaths. And so, yes, the answer to your question is that people who've been vaccinated clearly have died, but there isn't really any indication that side effect profile or serious events or deaths are higher in those folks that got the vaccine than those people who are not being vaccinated. So again, the risk-benefit ratio is heavily in favor of getting the vaccine. I would strongly encourage you to accept it as soon as it's made available in your area.
All right, 877-283-7570 is the number to call. We still have time for your question tonight, so get it in there while we still have time with Dr. Rupp on the phone. We're going to go back to the phones to Caroline from Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us, Caroline. Go right ahead.
Thank you. A question for the doctor, please. If a person is unknowingly asymptomatic, is there a danger in getting the vaccine?
So, Caroline, I'm not exactly sure I understand your question, but I think what you're saying is if somebody is in the process of having an infection with COVID-19, is there a danger to getting the vaccine at that point? What we're instructing people is if they have a symptomatic infection, that they wait until after they've recovered from the acute infection. Obviously, you wouldn't know that if you were in that asymptomatic period. And there are a number of people who, do have asymptomatic illness. I don't think that this would be a danger to you to get the vaccine at that point. Obviously, if you knew you were in the midst of a COVID-19 infection, you would wait until you had recovered. But the vaccine, really shouldn't be a danger to those folks. They're going to have an immunologic response either to the virus or to the vaccine, and it wouldn't be made more severe by getting vaccinated.
All right, thank you for that call. Misty from Iowa joins the conversation next. Thanks for joining us, Misty. Go right ahead.
Hi, my question is about the immunity period after the vaccine. I've heard that, 14 days after the second dose of either the Moderna or Pfizer, you're considered full immunity or optimal immunity. But then they're talking about need to quarantine, and that 90 days after that, you wouldn't have to quarantine if you were exposed. So are they saying with that then that the immunity is a 90-day period, or is that longer?
Misty, I'm not exactly sure I'm understanding your question completely, but the fact of the matter is that after about 12 to 14 days of receiving the first vaccine, when you look at the study data, the people who receive the vaccine are already starting to have a really good protective effect. And then when you get that booster dose at 3 to 4 weeks, it's thought to, really strengthen the effect and to prolong it. So after you've received that second dose, within a week or two of that, you're fully vaccinated, fully immune, 95% effective in preventing illness, nearly 100% effective in preventing hospitalization or death. Now, if you were exposed, had a high-risk exposure after having your second vaccine, what the CDC is recommending is that you really do not need to go into a quarantine effect at that point, because you should be immune from the infection, nearly 100% of the time having serious illness. So this is, a really a benefit from getting vaccinated. It's protecting you from the illness. If you do get exposed to it, you would not need to go into that quarantine period like you would if you hadn't been vaccinated.
All right, thank you for that call, Misty. Up next is Jeff in South Carolina. Thanks for joining the conversation. Go right ahead, Jeff.
Yes, with all the talk of side effects and all, my question is, I have heard that the shot attacks inflammation, and if you have arthritis, which is inflammation, is that one of the side effects that it could affect me?
Jeff, if you have an inflammatory arthritis, this would not be a contraindication to getting the vaccine. Any pre-existing condition that weakens your body is going to make, a COVID-19 infection potentially more severe. So again, you would be recommended to get the vaccine. About the only folks who are recommended to not get the vaccine are people who have a known allergic reaction to any of the ingredients of the vaccine. About the only one that's out there that people should be aware of is something called polyethylene glycol. This is an ingredient in some forms of laxatives. So if you've had a bad allergic reaction to a laxative, then I would recommend being very careful and making sure that you know what the ingredients are that you are allergic to before getting the vaccine. But other than that, most people should go ahead and get the vaccine. And, people with underlying pre-existing conditions and immunosuppressive disorders, they may not get the full immunologic response, but they really don't have any increased risk of harm from the vaccine. So again, I would recommend for you in particular, but people who have similar conditions, that they would go ahead and get the vaccine as soon as it's available to them.
All right, thank you so much for that call. We're going to go back to the phones in a moment, but Sarah, I wanted to ask you, AARP does such a great job of alerting us to the fraudsters out there. Have you seen that activity ramping up since the pandemic started?
Oh, it sure has. And I mean, it's so sad because we're all struggling enough, and then we got to worry about people trying to separate our money or our personal information from us as they try to talk about scams. The stuff we're seeing right now are, scammers that are telling you can get a place in line for your vaccine sooner by paying some money, for example, or, that will send you a vaccine through the mail. I mean, there's those sorts of things that are coming. And I think the best advice we can give right now is that you should not pay for the vaccine. And so anybody who's telling you that by paying them some money or giving your personal information out, that they'll, help you get the vaccine quicker is most likely scamming you. The other, piece of information we're trying to make sure folks know is that, really double check if someone calls you saying that they're ready to schedule you for a vaccine appointment. If it's, your doctor's office or someone that you've done business with before for your health care, you can probably trust and go ahead and share that information. But, for others, we really encourage you to double check that it's a legitimate ask for your information, because that's another thing that scammers are going to try to do right now. We're all anxious to get the vaccine, so I think if someone calls offering us an appointment, we want to hop to it. But really, take a deep breath and make sure that the appointment is on the up and up. So don't pay any money, and also don't give out your personal information unless you've confirmed it's a legitimate appointment.
Excellent guidance. Excellent guidance. We always have to stay alert. Next up, Brad from Texas joins the conversation. Thanks for joining us, Brad. Go right ahead.
Hi. My wife and I have been fortunate to get both doses of the Moderna vaccine and are now facing more serious questions with other things in East Texas. My question has to do with what progress may be made on having a vaccination passport that would facilitate travel without additional testing or isolation problems. Is there any forward progress on that that's worthy of note?
Yeah, Brad, that's a great question. And I think it gets at after you've been vaccinated and protected, are you going to be allowed to travel more freely? Will you be giving some sort of a identification card, for instance, that would be your free pass? Right now in the United States, that program really doesn't exist. Some countries are starting to have that kind of a program. I'm not aware of any plans to have that formalized here in the U.S. At this time.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that. Now, when it comes to possibly getting tested for COVID-19 before getting on an aircraft, for example, that could be a real possibility. But the passport, you just let us know, is not going to be a reality. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that, Dr. Rupp. All right, we have just a few moments left. I want to give you both a chance to offer our viewers final thoughts. Dr. Rupp, let's start with you.
Well, I think, my final thoughts are for all the viewers that, these vaccines are really the way that we dig ourselves out of this predicament that we find ourselves in with the pandemic. They're remarkably effective. A very, very good side effect profile. They're very, very worth the small risk of having a sore arm or some self-limited side effects compared to the real risk of serious disease, hospitalization, or even death. And this is the way that we get back our society and we get back to doing those things that we so much crave. Being able to get together with our families, going out to restaurants, going to the theaters. This is the way forward. And so again, I urge folks to take advantage of the vaccines as soon as they're made available to them and to protect themselves, protect their families, and to help our communities.
Thank you, Dr. Rupp. We sure appreciate you. Sarah, your final thoughts?
Yeah, well, first I want to thank Dr. Rupp for joining us tonight because I've learned so much this hour, and I hope folks across the country have as well. So thank you. Made my job a lot easier this hour too, so I appreciate that. But I also want to remind folks about the resources that AARP has, both for information about the vaccine and getting it in your state, which you can find at that website, which is aarp.org/vaccine info, but also poke around that website for some information on more fun things too. Some virtual events we've done concerts, we've done cooking classes online, all sorts of different things. So I would hope folks would engage with that. But mostly, everyone continue to stay safe. I think there is a light that is at the end of the tunnel, and we'll all get there eventually. So stay safe, and I just appreciate the conversation tonight so much.
Oh, absolutely. And we know our viewers do as well. And I'm just kind of scrolling through here. I want to make sure everybody has that website. It's aarp.org/vaccine info. And you're going to find great headlines here, like 8 things you need to know before your second vaccine, what you should know about the coronavirus at this moment. And it just goes on. There's a lot of great, valuable resources here. Major retailers who are administering the coronavirus vaccines. You can just hop online, and it's all right there at your immediate access to make the process easier for you. Visit aarp.org/AARP Live as well if you'd like to see past shows. We do this for you every third Thursday of the month. And every time AARP comes to town, they always bring a great giveaway with them. So make sure that you come and join us every third Thursday of the month. Visit aarp.org/vaccine info for more information. Well, we sure appreciate you, rural America. We're glad that you're with us. We hope that you and your family stay safe as we continue on. We know that it's been a challenge, but we will get through this together. And we're going to be here for you right here at RFD-TV with more valuable resources just like this. As we continue on, I want to make sure that everybody knows as well, you can always call in on this show. You might want to write down this phone number right now. It's 877-283-7570. And that way you've got it handy for when they join us. They're going to be back on March the 18th. That about does it for tonight. We're grateful for you, wishing you and your family a beautifully blessed evening from rural America's most important network.